A thesis. The classes we like the least offer us the lessons that we need to remember the most. As we look into 2021 and away from the year that was 2020, my fear is that too many of us will jettison and eschew the year that was 2020 without bringing with it the lessons that we need to learn the most. Picture it. 1996, I was in 10th grade, Mr. McDermott's geometry class at St. Peter's Prep, an all-boys school in Jersey City, New Jersey. I remember that class, and I remember Mr. McDermott really well, kind of like it was yesterday. I remember learning in geometry class about shapes and theorems, sides and angles. But most importantly, I remembered a lesson that I'll never forget. We had to keep a notebook in Mr. McDermott's class. We had to write down all of the laws, all of the lessons, and all of the theorems. It's how I remember things that will never leave me. Things like what an isosceles triangle is. An isosceles triangle, for those of you all who know, is a triangle that has two sides that are exactly the same with angles that are also exactly the same. As I reflect on the year that was 2020, I see this symmetry in a way that's reminiscent of this isosceles triangle. Two sides that are exactly the same with angles that are exactly the same. I remember the conversation about people having to wear masks and how suppressive and oppressive that felt. In earshot of people who have had to wear masks their entire life. Two sides. Those angles are exactly the same. I remember how fragile folks were about conversations and maybe even trainings about systemic racism, calling the conversation, calling the trainings anti-American. When nothing is more American than systemic racism. How does one be born in America with inalienable rights and be alien to those rights as long as they're able? How is it that the conversation and the war waged about people and property was over states' rights who saw people as property? It's un-American to have the conversation about systemic racism in America, where systemic racism founded America. In the conversation about the farm and the table, people flee these conversations about anti-racism as they're a menu item that they don't like. In the conversation of the farm and the table, racism is not the table. It's the farm itself. I think about in our political landscape how difficult it was for us to pick between two sides, but then I'm not surprised, as it's hard for us to even agree on three words. Black Lives Matter. But that doesn't surprise me. And I think about it and how many good friends of mine came to me tearfully, painfully, with tears in their eyes and a tremble in their throat, saying, I love you. I support you. I care about you and your family. But I don't support the organization. In a moment of allyship, I can almost appreciate that in my humanity for people saying, I don't support the organization, but I support you. It makes it a bitter pill to swallow, though, for some people in the conversation about police reform, that they can't hear the same argument. For those of us disproportionately impacted and affected by interactions with law enforcement, who in some regards say To all the brave men and women from all races, shapes, hues, and backgrounds, I support you. I care about you. I support you, but not the organization. Two sides, exactly the same. The angles are the same too, yet we fail to see our symmetry. So I'm hoping that in 2021, this copious list of notes that I've taken, I can share with you. And I'm looking for a platform. So I'm looking for a partner to have these conversations about. And I know while it's hard for us to say things like Black Lives Matter, I'm hoping that we can remember that the heart of it and the part of it has been that Black Americans have always been good for white Americans. We were the original economic stimulus package. We were your technology. We were the horse and the plow. We were the sharecroppers. We were the tenant farmers. We were the wet nurses. We were the backs that you rode on when you try to justify the high price for your private colleges and universities and private schools, and when you try to justify the ROI for your corporate organizations and establishments, you virtue signal diversity, using our faces, but never our identities. Black Americans have always been good for white Americans. And so what we're asking for everyone to acknowledge is that for the people we've been so good to, isn't it time for you to be good to us? And so maybe you can't say Black Lives Matter. Maybe you can say that Black love matters. Maybe you can say that Black families matter. Maybe you can say that Black hires matter. Maybe you can say that Black boards matter. Maybe you can say that Black executives matter. Maybe you can say Black therapists matter. Maybe you can say that Black joy matters. And if you can't say any of that, hire me. And then we can at least agree that Black invoices matter.